First, I'll start with what Father Roman sent to me yesterday, and he gave me strict instructions to read it as he wanted. It's in English. Your Eminence, Reverend Fathers, dear brothers and sisters in Christ, I greet you with the feast of Saint Demetrius, the great martyr, a dearly beloved saint of the Christian Church. It has been a year since the repose of your beloved hierarch, Archbishop Peter, a son of Russian immigrants and a truly loyal son of the Russian Church abroad. He fought to keep the traditions of the Orthodox Church outside of Russia, which were given to us by our fathers, who brought them from pre-revolutionary Russia. He grew up nurtured by spiritual giants. Archbishop Tikhon, a spiritual son of St. Gabriel of the Seven Lakes Monastery in Kazan, and Metropolitan Antony Khlupovitsky, St. John of San Francisco, who needs no introduction, and others. In seminary, he studied under such luminaries as Archbishop Averki, Protoprisviter Mikhail Pomazansky, and the fathers of the Jordanville Monastery. I personally knew Vladika Peter from my birth, as he attended my baptism back in 1959. Remember, Father Roman is writing. It's not me. He taught New Testament to our class in seminary, and I was tonsured into the Ryasa together with Father Peter when he received this small schema. He was my predecessor as head of the Russian Ecclesiastical Mission in Jerusalem in the 2000s. His history in the Holy Land goes back to the 1960s, when he would accompany Bishop Lav on his many pilgrimages to Jerusalem. After his ordination to the bishopric, Vladika Peter did not forget the Holy Land and continued pilgrimages until his last years. When Vladika passed away, I happened to be in the United States and was fortunate to attend his funeral representing the Russian Ecclesiastical Mission. May his memory be eternal. We have blessed the senior sister of the Sisterhood of the Resurrection of Christ in Bethany, Mother Maria, to travel the United States to give lectures on the mission and especially the Orthodox School of Bethany. Even though she is a delicate flower, I would rather say a cactus, in the Palestinian field of monastic blossoms, we hope that her words will be edifying and you will hear about the spiritual treasures which are to be found in the Holy Land. And if you find it in your heart to contribute alms to the Bethany School and the Russian Ecclesiastical Mission, it would be greatly appreciated, and we will pray that the grace of the land where Jesus lived, walked, died, and resurrected from the dead would come upon you. Asking your holy prayers for the brethren and sisters of the mission, with love in Christ, Archimandrite Roman, head of the Russian Ecclesiastical Mission in Jerusalem, October 26, November 8, 2025, St. Demetrios of Salonika. So this mission was easy, more or less. And now I was asked to talk a little bit about Holy Land. And this is not that difficult because there are some of you who have visited more than once, and there are some of you who never have been to the Holy Land, and some of you who even perhaps didn't have Holy Land anywhere in your thoughts or minds. So how to cover everything? It's much easier to respond to questions. So if you would like to start and to ask your first questions that I would be able to answer to, would be easier. No, everybody is busy with their needs. That's fine too. Okay.
How have things become more difficult for the Christians in the West Bank since the October 7th and the war that escalated?
October 7th changed, like it was difficult enough before. There were checkpoints all around anyway, but since October 7th, every single Arabic village was closed off with a wall, with a gate that they just close as they want. So our mobility is down to 20% of as it has been before the 7th of October. Bethany, for instance, lies on the other side of Mount of Olives. The one side is Garden of Gethsemane, on the top Monastery of the Ascension and the Place of the Ascension, and the other side Bethany. It used to be a 30-minute walk, hill up, hill down, and there you would be already in front of Jerusalem. Now we have just one exit to Bethany. It's like a bottleneck, and once there is a gate and it's closed, you can't get out at all. And if it's open, it might take you 2 hours plus in order to get out, around, through another checkpoint and into Jerusalem. So when we have liturgy in our monastery at 7 p.m. Sunday morning, then you are better leaving around 5 a.m. In order to get there. Did I say p.m. before? 7 a.m., 5 p.m., 7 a.m., 5 a.m. So then checkpoints are more and more dangerous. There are more soldiers present. There are more weapons all over the country, and they are more willing to use it. So unfortunately, especially when it's an exit of an Arab village, very often it is happening that the soldiers are just stopping a car, tearing everybody out, putting them on their knees, and first of all put a gun to your head. And it happens not only with men, that would be clearly classified as a terrorist for them. It goes also for women, it goes also for Christians, where they always see the crosses, and it goes also for nuns. So we have a Greek monastery in Bethany, and there are us, and the Greek sisters already experienced that. God had mercy for us. More questions? Shall I tell you the story a little bit? Yeah, okay.
I recall the difficulties with having Arab and Christian girls in your school before from the government and teaching classes. Has the war caused increased conflict within the school itself?
When the war just started, because a lot of our teachers and the families of our girls have relatives in Gaza. Of course, they were all on the news and all involved in it and all emotional about it. So the first thing I had to do to stop them talking about Gaza, because everything was just Gaza and how disastrous it is. It is disastrous. But I said, if this doesn't bring you down on your knees and you increase your amount of prayer, then all this time on your telephones in front of the news, it's just nothing works. So we stopped. We had to stop the teachers and all the students, have it all the time as a discussion, and just to keep them focusing on the work they're doing. By the way, just to give you a little bit insight on the school, it was established in the 30s of the last centuries by the first nuns who came to Bethany and established the Bethany Community of Resurrection of Christ. The first school was planned, it was open just for Arabic Christian girls, and it was planned in a very small the plans were to have a maximum of 20 children, starting out with 10. However, the plans were done without the local Christians, because once they figured out that sisters opened a school that was a boarding school for girls, the Arab Christians started to bring their children. and the sisters had to accept already in the first year 60 girls, which was much more than they planned to have ever. The reason for that the Christians at that time had this very nice tradition. Children were considered a blessing of God, and you had to give at least one of your children back to God. Either a son as a priest or a daughter as a nun. And they took it really serious. However, even though they were welcoming boys and girls equally, nevertheless, it was sometimes much easier to give God back a girl. Which would mean the fathers would bring several sisters and would tell the nuns, pick one. So until now we have Arabic sisters in our monasteries, both in Gethsemane, in St. Mary Magdalene Convent, and on Mount of Olives. And if you ask them how they ended up in a monastery, it's always a very nice story. However, the families took it really serious. Those children had a lot of respect within their families. So when they are coming back and visiting their families, within the families, other siblings and all the relatives are fighting among each other who is welcoming the nun first, and who is having her overnight, and who is giving her coffee, and who is giving the sweets. So kind of they receive a lot of respect. It's really taken serious. They are considered those who pray for the whole family and stand in front of God, and they are treated with the same respect. So, because the sisterhood was growing and the school turned out much bigger as it was planned, this is where they split up. Mother Mary was put the abbess, and she moved with sisters considering contemplative life to the other side of Mount of Olives, where around St. Mary Magdalene Church, St. Mary Magdalene Convent was established. Mother Martha, once you Martha, you better run. She stayed in Bethany, and she was running all her life till she died in Bethany too. She stayed back with all these children and the teachers and the patients and the sick ones and the medical staff in the hospital that they opened as well, with the school and the clinic. And they built an additional school building, and then they planned a playground, and this is when they stumbled more or less over a stone that turned out later to be our holy site. The stone is estimated by the archaeologists to be from the end of the 5th and beginning of the 6th century. It has a Greek inscription saying, "Here Martha and Mary for the first time heard from the Lord the word about the resurrection." This inscription takes us back to the Gospel of St. John, 11th chapter, and the story of when Jesus received the message that Lazarus is sick. He remained another 2 days wherever he was, and only then he walked towards Bethany. And once he reaches Bethany, Lazarus is not only not sick anymore, he has already died, and he was buried, and he is 4 days in the tomb, and he is smelling. So Martha, when she hears that Jesus is somewhere close, coming, she runs out and meets him in the streets. "If you only would have been here, my brother wouldn't be dead." And he comforts her, "Your brother will resurrect." Where she answers to that, I know everybody will resurrect in the last day of the resurrection, but right now it doesn't help me. My brother is dead." And then, so Jesus tells her directly, "I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live." And then he asks her, "Do you believe in that?" And she answers, "I do believe that you are Son of God that came into the world." And then she does something I was never paying attention reading this gospel outside of Bethany. She drops Jesus and she runs home. And Jesus, who visited the house of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus so many times before and knows the way, he doesn't continue. He waits where he met Martha. So Martha runs, Jesus is waiting. Martha goes directly into the house to Mary. The teacher is here and he is calling for you. Mary jumps up, runs outside, meets Christ in the streets, approaches him with the same phrase, like, if you only would have been here. Now, from the gospel we figure out that the sisters were home not alone. It says the Jewish that see Mary jumping up and running outside, they think that she goes to mourn at the tomb. This is now a completely Jewish tradition. We've been 7 days. It's the mourning period, so everybody is gathering, the friends, the relatives, the neighbors, and they are staying together and wailing together and mourning together. So when the Jewish see Mary jumping up, they follow her in order also at the tomb not to leave her alone. They meet in the streets. The Jewish are telling this one who made all these miracles, was it not possible for him to come earlier, not to make sure that Lazarus won't die? And Jesus, seeing the sorrows of the sisters, sheds tears and asks, where did you lay him down? Everybody continues to the tomb of Lazarus, which is from our place just 500, 600 meters away. There, Lazarus is called out from the tomb, but it seems that in our place, they started to venerate immediately as a meeting point with Martha and Mary with Lazarus. At least some pious Christians from the end of the 5th and beginning of the 6th century made sure that such an inscription was carved into the stone. And the stone, according to its shape, it could have been in an altar of a church, or it could have been just a plaque explaining what is venerated here. However, when sisters found the stone in the 30s of the last century, they kept it in the same place, they built a chapel around it, and we were blessed with our own holy site. Such a meeting point with Christ, it remains till today, where, if not there, any of us has the full right to complain to Christ with the same words of Martha and Mary. If you only would have been here in my life, then certain things should have happened and others definitely not. So where have you been? Jesus, knowing all our tendencies to complain and to blame, and if you don't find anybody else to blame, then we are ready to blame even God. So he gave an answer on a completely different level. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And then he's going to ask any of us as well, do you believe in that? And here Martha is giving a wonderful example, how do you respond to such important questions of Christ. So she's not only running and rushing and worrying about things that don't matter. Right there in this situation, she first confirms with the words, I do believe that you're Son of God that came into the world. And then she continues with the deeds. She runs off to the closest, to Sister Mary, to make sure to bring her to see Christ, taking some Jewish along with them and becoming witnesses of such a huge miracle as resurrection of our 4 days dead. Lazarus have been back then and remains till today. The school has changed through all these years. The amount of Christians that were about 70% in the 30s of last century, after establishment of State Israel, 1948, started to diminish. They found themselves between the Jewish and the Muslims. Loathed by both, they started to immigrate. Leaving the country, the percentage went down to 60, 50, 40, 30, 20. So the Christian schools, which are quite a lot in the Holy Land, most of them are Catholic, a bunch of them are Protestant, and then each denomination has their own schools, the Greeks, the Armenians, Coptics. We are the only Russian Orthodox school. So all of them had at a certain point the same problem, lack of Christian children. So they all had to figure out how to continue. Some of them closed, and the synod of our church had this on the agenda already in 1972 to decide if to close or to continue. Back then it was decided to keep the school. It was registered as a private Christian school, not a boarding school anymore. And it was the first year when we opened our doors and accepted as a student our first Muslim girl. The percentage of the Christian continued to diminish. So what do you think, how many Christians are living today in the Holy Land? Give me a number, a percentage. 12? Who gives more? 12? 5? 2? Okay, Father Grigori is closest. Nowadays it's less than 1. All denominations, Catholics, Protestants, Armenian, Coptics, Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, all the monasteries, all of us make less than 1% of population. And this is something you should really think about, because like Holy Land, I mean, we are not in the church now to see it. It's very effective when you sit in the church and you tell the people, look around. Whatever you see here in frescoes and icons, the majority of it happened in the Holy Land. Holy Land is the beating heart of our faith. It's not comparable, not to the third temple for the Jewish, and not also for the Muslims, the stone that Muhammad jumped on a horse to Mecca. God became man in the Holy Land. He was born there, he grew up there, he started to teach there, he did a lot of miracles there, he was crucified for our sins there, he resurrected, he ascended from Jerusalem, and the Holy Spirit came down on the apostles in the Holy Land as well. It's the beating heart of our faith. Now, that in this beating heart now, there are less than 1% Christians. And believe me, it is really hard enough to stay and live there. So, like, Corona time was such a time where Jewish tried on the Israeli side to take over and to take control. For instance, they sent a bill to the Greek Patriarchate for rubbish, counting back to the establishment of State Israel, 1948. Isn't it very Jewish? Like, the saddest things is to see, for instance, on the Lazarus tomb, the control of the Lazarus tomb is in Muslim hands. They have the key, and they have an auction every 5 years where whoever pays more gets the key. And then he can determine the rules, how much to demand for entrance, and what has to be done there. So Lazarus tomb was in a very, very poor condition. And the pilgrims, before Corona, they were visiting a lot, and they were all the time collecting money in order to do renovation works. These renovation works never were done. And it was not a reason of not having enough money. So holy sites will remain holy sites even if we are all tossed out from the Holy Land. There will be somebody who will be making you paying entrance fees away, see the icons, like we see today in Moscow, in Kremlin, when you enter, it's a museum. You are not allowed to venerate the icons. And it's the saddest things to see. It's a wonderful church, and then there is a person sitting there who is telling, don't touch anything, don't forget you are in the museum. So the same things can absolutely happen in the Holy Land as well. Like just close the monastery. By the way, the majority of us monastics in the monasteries have a foreign passport. And as long as we are living there, we are getting a maximum of a 2 years visa with no other rights. So if you stop coming and visiting on pilgrimages, what they need, Israel needs a maximum of 3 years to have all of us absolutely, officially and legally out of the country. So, like, we are really depending on you in many, many ways. We are one body of the church, and if the Holy Land is the beating heart, like, you should consider what is happening when the heart stops beating. Yeah, perhaps I'll stop here and leave you some space for some questions.
How many girls are in your school now?
There is a question about the school. This year we have 418 girls. 418 girls from kindergarten till grade 12. They are coming in at the age of 4. They are graduating at the age of 17, 18. And right now, like, we have 100% of them continuing to universities. So which is like this very year, the graduation class had 19 students, and we had an overall average of 96.6 out of 100. Yeah, we are considered one of the best schools, not only in Bethany but in the West Bank. We have a huge waiting line to get in, and out of these 418 girls, there were just 22 Christians. Out of these 22 Christians, there are about 13 girls who are coming from mixed families where mainly Ukrainian women married an Arab Muslim who allowed them to keep Christianity, to remain Christian, but the children are officially Muslim, but the mothers secretly baptized at least the girls. So from these 22 Christians, we have around 13 secretly baptized girls who actually later on will grow up and will be forced, if not a miracle happens, to marry a Muslim and to continue to have Muslim children. That's the situation. As for the school, the main language is Arabic. We do teach English starting in kindergarten, and we do teach Russian starting in grade 3. So all of them have at least these two languages. Our main, I don't want to say enemy, but who dislikes our presence and our work is actually the Palestinian Ministry of Education we belong to. So they absolutely sense the danger we present educating these girls, because like being a private Christian school, the children are not forced to enroll in our school. The parents who bring the Muslim parents who bring their Muslim girls, they come for two things. They come for education, and they come for Christian attitude. So a lot of children who have some, I don't want to say disabilities, but health issues that would be mocked and mobbed and laughed at in Muslim schools or in government schools, the parents come because they know that not only these children will be treated well, but also the other students will be made sure to cooperate and to help each other. So, if you don't have any questions, Father Gregory wants to say something.
Brothers and sisters, everything that we collect from today's meal will go to Mother Maria for the Holy Land mission and for her school. So you can still make a donation if you haven't done that yet. There was one in the church, but now, having heard from her, we think that probably you want to support even more. So please, you can do something over there at the sisterhood table, and that will help all of the Orthodox Christians in our mission who are without pilgrims now. So Mother Maria, thank you so much for being with us.